All right, go big or go home. That is the resounding message over the weekend from many of the 2020 Democratic hopefuls.
I want to overturn Citizens United. Democracy is not for sale.
How about bringing in less expensive drugs from places like Canada?
I believe that we need to renew the assault weapons ban.
That we have Medicare for all in this country so that no matter who you are, you can get good health care.
And the Washington Post points out, saying, quote, the newest class of Democratic presidential candidates has been swinging for the fences in recent weeks by embracing or entertaining a head-snapping list of policy ideas that were either rejected or ignored by the party's previous standard bearers. Joining me now, MSNBC contributor and former senior advisor to the Hillary Clinton campaign, Adrian Elrod, and Chris Wilson, CEO of WPA Intelligence, GOP pollster, and formerly with the Ted Cruz 2016 presidential campaign. Great to have both of you with us. Let me, Adrian, list some of the things that people have discussed. Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, tuition-free college, tax the super wealthy. I think by any standard, these are some very big ideas. And so the first question is, are these candidates promising policies that simply cannot be delivered? Are they promising too much to voters to try to win early support?
Well, first of all, if you're a candidate running for president in a very crowded, increasingly crowded field for 2020, you've got to say things and make bold statements that will allow you to stand out, right? We're also dealing with candidates who are grappling for the most progressive wing of the base, which tends to be the most active, loudest wing of the base. So you are seeing candidates do that. But look, in contrast to President Trump, these are candidates who are actually going out there and having a conversation and a policy debate about how to improve the lives of American people, whereas you've got a president who is focused on hurling insults at candidates like Elizabeth Warren, questioning her heritage, hurling sexist insults. This is a stark contrast to somebody who is driving news, the president of the United States, in that way, versus candidates who are on the Democratic side who are literally having a debate, a policy debate about the direction they want this country to go.
Let me play devil's advocate here for a second and hone in on this Trump point, that Trump also during his campaign made big promises that have turned out to be absolutely false, including that Mexico will pay for the wall. It's not to say that maybe he didn't genuinely want Mexico to pay for it. The realistic part of it is that Mexico is not paying for it. Why can't Democrats also do the same? Dream big, promise big, go after big ideas, and worry about the details when and if they get into office?
Well, they can, and I think they should. And Adrian's point is right in terms of trying to go out there and build their own constituency. It's remarkable to me how early it started. I mean, as you mentioned, I was with the Cruz campaign. We didn't announce till March 23rd, if you can think about that. We were the first ones to announce the Republican side. Yet it feels like this race has already heated up to a high level. But I think what you're seeing with the Democratic Party is sort of a race to the left for the purposes of building an online constituency for fundraising. And it's important. I mean, one of the aspects of the Sanders campaign, which you had the benefit or maybe the curse of going up against in 2016, I would not have envied that, was how much that matters and the ability to announce and go out and raise money. So each one of these proposals, whether they believe there's a solid policy behind them, and let's face it, most of the details behind these plans are embarrassingly scarce. But once they put their name behind it, it allows them to go out, take some stands, and be able to raise money with this online constituency, be able to build a list. That's going to be really important as we get into a very prolonged primary process. When you look at states like California, Texas, and possibly New York that are going to be decided on a CD by CD level. And that's an entirely different operation than what we competed under in 2016.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point, which is the postmortem for Democrats about 2016, what lessons they've learned. Let me read you this from the New York Times. It's an article about the importance of voters in the Midwest. And they ask this question: should Democrats redouble their efforts to win back the industrial heartland that effectively delivered the presidency to Donald J. Trump, or turn their attention to more demographically promising Sun Belt states like Georgia and Arizona? What's the strategy? Can they do both? Should they do both? Should they focus on one?
Yeah, and this is where I kind of wonk out on this stuff because the delegate math is so fascinating, especially in the Democratic primary, where in the Republican primary, it's a winner-take-all state, right? So if you win a state, if you get 49%, you win that state, if that's the most that you get among all the other candidates in that state. Democrats, the delegates are awarded proportionately to your vote in the state. On that note, look, I think Democrats have got to do both. I think states like Ohio are becoming increasingly out of reach, especially before the new census hits in 2020, which will not go into effect in the presidential cycle until 2024. So you've got to do both. You've got to win back the heartland. You've got to win back some of these Midwest industrial states. But you've also got to play well in states like Arizona and Georgia. And you can't just play well. You pretty much need to win.
So do big ideas then work in those states? I mean, is something like the Green New Deal is something that is going to appeal to folks in Ohio or in Arizona?
Look, time will tell. I think Americans are far more open to bigger, bolder ideas than, perhaps some of us may think. But look, we've got 12 debates in the Democratic primary, right? And all of these ideas will suss themselves out as they should in a lot of those debates. And also to the point that Chris made earlier about candidates trying to raise money by making some of these bolder statements in a grassroots format, you've got to remember that in order to qualify for the debate stage in the Democratic primary, you have to raise $65,000 or 65,000 unique donors in at least 20 states. So the grassroots fundraising component is very important.
So to that point, Chris, then the big question about somebody like Joe Biden, somebody that some have argued could appeal to voters in the Midwest and in some of these other states, does he have the advantage going into this if he does decide to run, that he has that instant appeal to demographics that the Democratic Party has struggled with historically?
Well, I think he does if you get to a general election. I actually think where Biden has what might struggle is in a primary. I think he would start with the lead just because he has the name identification, but he's going to have a hard time getting to the left of some of the proposals that Adrian was discussing that you see so many Democrats getting behind. The other aspect of it that's just fascinating to me is you really have a different scenario because of the way the delegate math works out, where Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Nevada, the way that it worked out for us in 16 becomes less important. I mean, really with New Hampshire, it's almost an elimination game elimination primary between Sanders and Warren because it's kind of both their home states. I don't think you see both of them going out there. Then they've got to move into a state like California that's just astronomically expensive.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how all of this plays out. Chris Wilson, Adrian Elrod, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
All right.